for all Americans. And whereas Black History Month celebrates the achievements of African Americans who have been instrumental in shaping the character, culture, and economic life of our city, state, and nation. And whereas Dr. Carter G. Woodson, founder of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, first launched Negro History Week in 1926 and is widely regarded as the father of Black history. And whereas in 1976, the informal expansion of Negro History Week to Black History Month was officially recognized by the United States government. And whereas the 2023 theme, Black Resistance, focuses specifically on the movement of Black Americans' responses to establish safe spaces where Black life can be sustained, reinvigorated, and respected. And whereas Black History Month is an occasion to rediscover the enduring stories of African Americans and the gifts of freedom, purpose, and the opportunity to have bestowed on the future generations, it is also a time to commemorate the countless contributions of African Americans, many who have lived through and overcame the scourge of segregation, racial prejudice, and discrimination to enrich every fiber of the American life. Their examples of heroism, patriotism, and the enterprise have given people of all backgrounds confidence, courage, and faith to pursue their own dreams. And whereas Black History Month is a time to recognize and honor the many people, events, and significant contributions of Black and African Americans to our community, nation, and our world. Now, therefore, I, Steve Valentino, the mayor of the city of Geneva, on behalf of the city council, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2023 as Black History Month and ask all residents of Geneva to celebrate diversity and reflect on historical events, the culture, the heritage, Black power, Black Lives Matter, Africa, America, and famous figures. Join me in commemorating the countless contributions of African Americans to our city and to our nation and to our world. Okay, next on our agenda is the supervisor update. Mr. Kennedy, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and hello, councilors. Belated Happy New Year, and fellow public servants here and online. A couple of things I'll follow up on. As you know, Supervisor Pruitt, formerly Councilor Pruitt, has sent you some information from the county. Those were some of the things that I reported on last time, so I'm going to save you some time, given your packed agenda. You're welcome. But a couple of things I will follow up on, or some of the discussion we had back in December. Councilor Burrell asked me some questions, and his questions actually informed me about who is in the Geneva office, and it is just DSS. I wanted to report a follow-up on that, and thank you for the prompt. That is that, first of all, the two committees that I am on for this year are Health and Human Services and also Government Operations and Improvements. At Government Ops next week, I've already informed the chair of the committee that I'll have some questions about how the county clerk envisions the future of the post-pandemic Geneva offices. So that will be on my list of things to ask. Thank you for that prompt back in December. This is an FYI. I am on the ad hoc master planning committee for the parks master plan for the county, and city manager has been introduced by Julie Barry at the planning department, and Amy, city manager, has also connected some of her department heads. So that's going forward with as part of the master planning process. So I'm happy to be at that table as well. Had a good meeting this afternoon at Public Works and learned about the mutual aid agreement with the city and the county. That was very informative. Again, it's such a small world that we are in. Bill Wright, who used to be the director of Public Works here, is of course intimately familiar with Geneva. And we reviewed, he actually offered me the mutual aid agreement, which was signed by previous mayor and previous county administrator. And I think that's up for renewal in May. And that essentially is to provide support for highway and other maintenance. And the county does this, I guess, not so much a mutual agreement, but has allocated certain time for county engineers to provide support services to other municipalities in the county. The other thing, last thing, is that now that I'm on Health and Human Services Committee, I anticipate per Commissioner Tiberio at the county that she expects a updated data sheet on all of the services that are being provided to eligible county residents in the city of Geneva, as well as all the municipalities. So my plan would be to come back and report on the 2022 data at that time. Across the board, it looks like, generally speaking, Geneva, per the 2021 data, has almost around 23% on average of all the public benefit beneficiaries in the county here in the city of Geneva. So that's food stamps, temporary assistance to families, and so forth. And I say 23%, give or take, for all those different public benefit categories. So my plan would be to come back in April and report on the 2022 data, as well as other items that come to my attention. So I'll stop here, take a breath, and see if there's any questions from me.
Thank you,
If
Supervisor.
not, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is a DRI update.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors, and good evening. Work completed to date. There's no significant progress in the project to report. Pay application 16 has been submitted in draft form and is currently being reviewed by the contractor. Routes 5 and 20 traffic signal upgrades and the Bozzolo rainwater collection system installation are progressing, although electrical components are still back ordered. Bicycle shelters and racks have been installed. The contractor has submitted requests for substantial completion acceptance, pay quantity discrepancy review, and contract extensions of time, which are all being investigated. Substantial completion will be granted when all traffic signal work has been installed and accepted. For upcoming work schedule and contract 1, 5 and 20 corridor, and contract 2, streetscape in 5 points. Work is not yet completed on all traffic signal upgrades and will be once material and equipment is secured. Some concerns and overall is additional engineering charges due to uncompleted work and schedule delays. Another concern is signage on 5 and 20, reviewing additional permanent signs. Median signs are getting run over often by motorists. And for streetscape, they're reviewing the Exchange Street loading zones. For the Bozzolo rain collection structure, that is not complete. And for electrical, the traffic signal material and equipment delays continue. And that's it.
Thank you for that update. We'll follow that up with the Foundry update.
For remedial design, the DEC's engineering contractor completed remedial design plans for the block of properties located along the north side of Tillman Street, east side of Geneva Street, and south side of Lewis Street. Remediation of these properties is scheduled for completion in 2023. Remedial designs were completed for 60 Middle Street, which has been used as a project staging area. Remedial construction details are provided below. Remedial design plans are in progress for 19 remaining properties that are located south of St. Peter's Church, along Genesee and Geneva Streets, and along the west side of Geneva Street and south side of Tillman Street. The DEC and its engineering contractor will meet with homeowners in the coming months to review plans. No further action letters will be issued this month to the owners of properties remediated in 2022. Remedial construction for remedial construction, evacuation of 60 Middle Street, which has been used as a project staging area, began in early January, is scheduled to be completed this week. Per an agreement with the city, the contractor will use the vacant parcel at 42 Geneva Street as a staging area for materials and equipment during 2023. Setup activities will begin this month. Restoration details will be finalized with the Director of Public Works later in the year. Restoration activities at Genesee Park, including masonry activities and landscaping, are expected to resume in late March or April, depending on the weather, and are expected to be completed in late spring. Remediation of all remaining residential properties is expected to be performed in 2023. Remediation of the State Street staging area located on the parcel just east of the railroad is anticipated to be completed in 2024. demobilization from the additional project staging area on Lee High Street will also be completed in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is consideration of meeting minutes from January 4th, 2023. I need a motion. Counselor Galanese, seconded by Counselor Noon. Any discussion?
I just want to make a minor adjustment.
Mhm.
When I was referring to the local athletic team, that was the hockey team, not the Hobart men's lacrosse team.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Galanese,
Aye.
Counselor Burrow,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Camera,
Aye.
Counselor Salamandra,
Abstain.
Counselor Brim,
Aye.
Counselor Noon, Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Before I move into public comment, just a reminder to the public and to counselors that we are bound by our ethics, 17 tenets of ethics, and our rules of order procedure, and with less refrain from any personal comments as we move forward in the meeting. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment. Before I call up Paul, Counselor Salamandra, I lost my Zoom connection, so if you would like to say something, please find a way to jump in, okay?
She there?
Because I have to look up there to see you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Paul Pasavani from the Ontario County Planning Board. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Manager, Council. As most of you know, I'm the representative from Geneva to the County Planning
Paul,
Board.
can I ask you to lift the mic up? a
yeah.
little
Yeah.
Closer.
Hey,
There you go.
Frankie.
Thank you.
Yep. How's this?
Better.
Okay. Or I'll use my professor voice.
There you go.
There we go. And so I just want to acknowledge with enthusiasm the process that the city has gone through in terms of involving consultants, the public, to engage in a long overdue reconsideration of the zoning code in Geneva. That's great. I noticed that there's a draft that was posted in 2020 and a revised draft posted May 28, 2021. That's also been posted. And I'd like to thank the city manager for her assurance that from this past fall that it is on the city's radar screen to finish this job. And so that's great. And, and once Geneva has a zoning code that most people are mostly happy with, that will need to get referred to the Ontario County Planning Board. And the contact for that is a senior planner. Her contact information is right on the Ontario County Planning Board website, or, if I can do anything to help or facilitate in terms of her email or facilitate, an introduction or whatever, I'm more than happy to do that. And she'll be, your great resource for like what materials are going to be needed for the referral and due dates and anything like that. But like I said, I'm happy to facilitate that as well. And I should also mention that I was recently elected the chair of the Ontario County Planning Board. So
Congratulations for that, definitely.
anyway, and I said I'd be quick. So.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Yes.
Following up on that, can we have the city manager give us an update of where we are with the zoning update?
She has a city manager report next on the agenda.
Oh, very nice. That works
Perfect timing.
perfect.
And I'll start at the end, which is the zoning update. So the zoning update, we are in final discussion with some of the community partners who had some concerns over the initial update. And that discussion should come to a close in the next couple of days, I believe. Our plan is to bring it forward to the county and to the city in March, April timeframe. So within the next month, we should have that zoning update ready for that final consideration. So it's on target.
So as a council, we'll be able to, before that, see the recommendations from.
Yes, that's what you'll be getting is the recommendations so that council can review them.
Okay.
It comes to us first and then the county, or the county and then us?
Other way.
Because
Yes,
It comes to us first, and then we'll comment on it, and then it will go to the city.
yes. And
then
when
if-
it goes to the county, you can see what's being sent to the county. They will make their remarks before you make yours.
And then if we make remarks for suggestions to change, then it goes back to the county for a stamp and then back to us for approval? Is there a
Not
back and forth
necessarily,
process?
Not necessarily. Do you want to, or do?
Go for it.
Let's assume that the county recommends approval. Then that'll basically be the end of things. Now the county could approve with modifications,
Mhm.
in which case, if the city follows the modifications, all's good. If the city decided that it did not want to follow the modifications, they would have to give reasons why and then pass the zoning code with a supermajority. And likewise, I doubt this would happen, but like if the county planning board recommended not approving it, once again, the city could still approve it, but giving reasons why it didn't accept the reasons from the county planning board, and pass that with a supermajority as well. I don't foresee that happening.
Counselor Regan.
So basically is just to clarify, at least for me, it sounds as though the county has the final say before, and then we just kind of take what you say. Is that
Uh,
correct, or?
Nope.
Or was it the other way around?
Yeah, you have the final say. We would comment on it, and then and make a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
But I mean, I couldn't say anything specific about it because I'm going to see it, right? So I'm just generally, just to be clear, I'm talking about the general process.
Got it.
And just on that, so if the county were to approve it and you said, we want to make modifications, that can still, those discussions
happen.
can still happen. Just because they say, if they were to look at it, say, it's great, go as is, and you say, wait, time out, we want to do something a little different. It doesn't automatically. There's some back and forth.
a substantial change that.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Counselor Galanese and Counselor Cameron.
No, I was just gonna say that, so they basically would let's say they're gonna approve it with their recommendations or modifications, but we have the ultimate say regardless.
Good.
It's our vote
Mhm.
matters, so it's ultimately up to us.
Counselor Cameron.
Yeah, the thing is that maybe I'm misremembering something, but I felt that when we last had, our work sessions with the consultant and stuff, which was probably over a year ago, right?
It was.
We had some contentious issues with the south end of the city and how to do those things. And I don't remember us ever resolving them. And so the thing is that this draft is in a place where I don't think we've weighed in and figured that out. And the whole idea, from the people that are on the south end is that pardon me if I'm misrepresenting this, but I get the feeling that they of course made all their investments in their properties and everything else out there, expecting it to be forever pastoral. And now development's coming to the south end of the city. And so that's one of their concerns is why do we let multifamily maybe be there, and there's all kinds of good designs and everything else that we started to talk about. And we started talking about multifamily designs over in Middle Street and that part of the city and, and squaring that kind of development. So that's where I thought we left off. And I kind of feel like we need to have a work session and maybe another public thing where they can come and express their concerns again. And then we've got to work through it because I think we were all kind of exhausted. It's a bear to do, but I think we should probably try to do that before we hand it off to the county.
Counselor Salamandra.
I'd just like to echo what Counselor Camera said. I think that things have changed, or at least people's understanding of housing in Geneva has changed since those conversations. So I too would like to revisit it, but just as a discussion in next month's meeting, and then hear public comment about it. I believe very strongly that we must zone Slauson Lane for development.
So my suggestion is let's see where we're at right now, because a lot of things have evolved since we last saw the document. There's been a lot of input about the historic overlays, about different zoning in different areas that different groups have provided that. So let's not jump the gun. Let's see the draft, and then we can have a work session on that, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want me to continue with the
Please.
report?
Yeah.
So just a few updates on some grant activity. We have received, in partnership with the town of Geneva, a joint USDA grant on sustainability. We now have an executed contract for that grant. It's a 2-year grant. And as part of that program, we'll be receiving support of a part-time sustainability coordinator that's housed at the town, but they'll be working with the city. And we're going to be bringing together the Green Committee from the city and the town's sustainability committee in the future to discuss that grant and how it's implemented. It has a lot to do with composting and increasing our composting. So that has moved forward and we've received that award.
Can you give us an amount?
I can't off the top of my head. There's a lot of grants with different numbers, so I don't want to misquote you, but I can get you the amount.
Thank you.
Oh, do you want me to keep going or you want to do questions by one-on-one topic?
Yeah, one-on-one topic.
Mine's real easy. Can I just get a copy of the grant? Like mine?
Yeah, this is a
Yep, I can provide.
I just want,
session more. than
all I
anything
want
else.
to say is I'm happy with this joint venture, and I'm glad that Jacob Fox is part of the
Yeah.
program again.
Yes. On the grant side of thing, Empire State Development Round 7 funding. So we just received Restore New York Round 6 contract. That's for the Middle Street apartment project. We'll soon have that contract and then renovations can begin on that. We've now submitted Round 7. Council approved that for Pretzel Logic. So we'll wait and see on that piece. Updated event applications. So our city event applications have been updated and they're now available online. So any organizations wishing to host events in the city can go ahead and look at that. There have been some changes in those applications. Some things are a little more streamlined. Yesterday, at the Welcome Center, we unveiled a veterans kiosk with the State Veterans Office. And that kiosk is within the kind of joint area near the vending machines. Veterans can go in when it has the new software. Right now, it currently is a rotating screen of different services that veterans can utilize. It will become an interactive kiosk. So these are going across the state in a variety of different locations. And we now are home to one of those. Other updates. I think the other piece that I just want you to be aware of is the police chief recruitment and how we're moving that forward, as well as the director of planning and economic development. So I'll start with planning and economic development and then move to the police chief. So the planning and economic development director search, we had gone out to a search. We have an internal team and an external team who had worked on that search. And we had paused that search to bring it back this year. Those two teams will be spending February 14th together in that evening or afternoon to discuss what worked, what didn't work, and what are the real expectations of the position. Moving through that, because it's a director of planning and economic development, there's two functions to that, but it's a director level who manages those functions. How do we do that? And what does that look like for our city? So that is moving forward. We'll continue with a similar process where we'll accept applications once it's open. We'll do blind application review, which means we don't know who the applicants are as we review them. We'll do additional questions from both sides. And then the police chief recruitment. So the police chief recruitment is now live for the test. There is a test for that. New York State Civil Service. There are internal and external availabilities. So internal candidates as well as external candidates. And there's minimum qualifications around those. We did meet as a team to look at those minimum qualifications as well as discuss it with the county. So things like years of experience as supervisor. So being a sergeant, things like that. Being a lieutenant, being a captain. There are internal candidates and there are external candidates. Depending on the numbers that take the test, once you get into civil service, is how you can reach those candidates, because there are all of those qualifications. When we look at recruitment, I know that there are some potential candidates watching this evening, because we're going to talk about residency later regarding this. They are interested in knowing if there is a residency requirement when we look at the police chief, and we'll have that discussion. As we move forward in this search, all of the applicants have to take that test. The test is being offered March 25th. The application deadline is February 17th. All of this will be posted onto our website. And from that, we'll have a qualified list of applicants that we can interview. Those interviews will run similar to the planning and economic development search and that recruitment, where we'll have internal and external panels reviewing those applications. We will have a list at that time. I've had some questions about time frame of those interviews. Again, because it's going from a test, I have to wait until I have those lists before I do those interviews. And so a lot relies on state civil service and their timeliness. In the meantime, we'll work with the department if needed to have interim chief or interim processes so that the department will continue to function. It likely will not occur before June that we will have a list and be able to do those interviews. So there are transition plans in place, lots of transition plans, lots of time with the police department, getting that all set. So that's how that looks right now.
Comment?
Real quick question. When you said that you unveiled a veterans kiosk down at the Welcome Center, it made me reminded me of something to ask. Have we been in communication now that the American Legion has a new home, and I'm sure they're trying to facilitate or trying to find a way to facilitate the 4th of July festival? Have they been working with you guys to try to plan for that?
Yes, so they reached out late last year. I can't remember, to discuss what they were looking at with that. And we pointed them to the event application from last year, how that all works out. So I know they are looking at that. They're also
So my question is, are we acting as though they're just somebody coming to the city of Geneva and asking for an event? Or are we acting as if it's the American Legion, where they have donated thousands of dollars every year for the last 100 years? And are we working with them to be a partner with them, or are we treating them as just somebody coming into the city to have an event? Because to me, I feel that was a big event for the city. And I feel as though we should be meeting them more than halfway, if not all the way.
So we're treating all events the same at this time because of the actual costs that the city incurs in all of these events. With that being said, we've had discussions with different events, but in the new application package, unless it's a city event, something that the mayor's tree lighting, that would be a city event. We have not done any waivers for any organization on those events, because there are so many events that are kind of integral to the city. And so I think that's why we have decided that the events are the events.
So Council Galanese, I understand your concern, but once you open up the door to one agency, you open up the door to many agencies that feel they're just as important. But I will agree with you. If there's any complications with the American Legion in holding their event here, I would love to have that open discussion, because I think there's ways to mediate that, not necessarily from the city's point of view, but from personal counselor's point of view or other sponsors' point of view. So I think we can handle that.
Yeah, I'd like to have that.
All set?
That's all I have.
Great. Moving on to unfinished business. Resolution scheduling a public hearing in connection with adoption of local law 1-2023, creating staggered terms of office for members of the Geneva City Council, presented by our city manager.
Okay, so there's quite a bit of information in your packet about this. This does establish a meeting on February 15th to talk about this local law. It is a public hearing on that date. This is due to the fact that last year you had adopted a local law. However, it did not make the November ballot. If this resolution is adopted, it's for the public hearing. If the resolution following the public hearing is adopted, this would the staggered terms would be part of this year's ballot, and then take effect in 2024.
Need a motion? Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Noon. Discussion? Counselor Peeler.
I just have a question about the process. When you say it's going to be on the ballot, is that because it's going to be a referendum on the ballot that the
Yes.
public
Yes.
actually has to?
Yes, and to be
choose.
specific, the November ballot.
Right.
Yes.
So,
If it does pass in the referendum with an active date of January 2024.
I understand, because I was mulling that over before, like, this seems to be like it's a situation where a mandatory referendum has to happen. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because we can't
Right.
vote to
Correct.
decrease our terms.
you cannot.
So it wouldn't go into effect until when?
January 2024,
So
if it
this
passed.
coming election.
Yes.
So,
Counselor Cameron.
let's say a counselor is elected. They're being reelected for a 4-year term?
It depends on which,
Okay, so they're being reelected for the staggered term framework that we passed.
If the referendum
Right.
passes. So we have a public hearing, then we have a local law. And if those all go through, it goes to referendum and it's up to the citizens of Geneva to vote on the staggered terms. Clerk, please call the roll.
Kemp,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Counselor Burrow.
Correct me if my reading skills are off. It doesn't reference which at-large counselor would get the 2 or the 4-year term. I would assume that the at-large counselor that got the most votes would get the 4-year term, but I didn't see it referenced here. If it actually passes. It only says one.
So that's a good question, and we're only establishing a public hearing, so let's clarify that before we actually
Okay,
vote on the local law.
thank you.
Can we reach out to Emil just to verify that? Is there a preference of this council to establish the largest vote getter,
It should be the larger vote getter.
It should be the largest vote
It's
getter.
common sense.
who gets the
Okay.
Yeah.
four.
But my question is so once the staggered terms are in effect after this first time around, then it goes to 4 years.
4-year elections every 2 years.
Okay. So the only thing that I have in question is that if you're running at large or at mayor and you ran citywide and you're new and you get elected, let's just say, I don't think that in the next, so in 2 years, you're going to be up for election again.
Correct.
Okay. So I don't think 24 months is enough time. And I don't think that there's anyone sitting up here. We've all are new except for 2 that grasp what it takes to be a city councilor in 2 years of understanding how this works. So to me, 2 years is it's borderline, but it's a short time to learn the ropes of the job of a city councilor. It really, really is. And we've had more meetings than probably any other councilor term before us in the time that we've been here. And that's my feeling on
I'd be in
it.
a state center.
Well, I'm saying, but
I'm
we're
with you.
looking for the best interests of 10,000 people here, so I think that it matters. And, my feeling is that the change should be done by the community. So I'm for this, but that those 2 years, I understand long-term what it's going to do, and I agree with that, but the 2 years to get there is awful short. And especially for the person that runs citywide, it's a lot of work. Anyone that's run citywide knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's a lot easier to run an award. You only have to worry about, your award. But when you put all your time and effort and money and you take away from your family and your life to want to sit in this seat to serve the community, which we all, I feel, is in our best interest, no matter what your views are. 2 years is, it's iffy to me.
Counselor Peeler.
Yeah, I think you're right. But this is not really what we're doing. The public is voting for this.
No, I know.
Right,
I'm
so
just putting it
this
out
little
there.
endeavor called Western civilization and the American experiment is reckless and it's scary. And it's just, but we're gonna let the people decide and hopefully they'll elect someone intelligent enough to hit the ground running and then they can learn fast. Right?
I have one more thing to say, and I hope that if this does pass, that we take a look, since we're making a charter change, that we maybe mimic what the county with the combined wards for council members and what the city of Canandaigua and the city of Auburn has done, where they have combined the wards 1 and 2. Let's just say, I'm giving an example, wards 1 and 2, a counselor, 3 and 4, a counselor, 5 and 6, a counselor, and then have more counselors at large, which would give the most representation to the city of Geneva citizens. You can disagree or agree, but this is the path that most people have taken to make modern, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, representation to.
That is for
even
another
across the
discussion.
board.
Can I hold, Counselor Salamandra?
I regret that this is going to a referendum without considering a remake of the city. I tried to bring forward the elimination of the at-large counselors because I disagree with Counselor Galanese that it's better representation to have citywide. I believe it's better representation to be in your ward, and a lot of communities are looking to do that. So I think it's disingenuous to put this forward without taking a comprehensive look at the elections and allowing the people to weigh in on that. What we are doing is allowing the people to weigh in on this one small thing that I think would only be beneficial to those in power.
Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Camera,
Aye.
Counselor Salamandra,
Nay.
Counselor Brim,
Aye.
Counselor Noon, Counselor Galanese,
Aye.
Counselor Burrow,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is new business. Resolution authorizing residency exemption for the current police chief presented by our city manager.
All right, so this resolution actually follows a previous resolution from one of the former police chiefs, where at the end of their term, they had moved out of the city of Geneva. There's a resolution that says that the police chief and the fire chief have to live within city limits. This resolution allows our current chief to move during the end of his term, so he will be retiring at the end of June. His house is currently on the market. If it does sell in this time frame, this would allow him a waiver to live outside the city, continue to serve as our chief throughout the end of his term.
Need a motion? Counselor Noon, seconded by Counselor Peeler. Discussion. Counselor Noon?
So I had a discussion with Amy that if you took the time to read the resolution, there's some language in here that I considered fluff. If you look at sections 1, 2, and 8, has absolutely nothing to do with the residency exemption. So I would like to make a motion that we strike those from the current resolution and have the resolution start with the third section, which reads, whereas in 2009, the Geneva City Council adopted a resolution requiring residency of police and fire chiefs, and then go on from there. Because that is what this whole exemption is about. So I'd like to make that motion.
We have a motion on the floor to strike 1, 2, and 8 in the resolution. Do we have a second?
Wait,
Yeah,
but
I
I don't
think
understand. Can we just
Well,
make
you
sure?
can look at it.
I'm
Counselor
looking at
Galanese
1.
is seconding, and we'll get on to discussion. It's not like it's all over. It's just on the floor. So what's on the floor is on the current resolution, striking items 1, 2, and 8.
You know, it's unfortunate we don't have the page numbers on this
Yeah,
agenda.
what page is this? Because I'd like to read that closer.
Well, it's page,
Page
Thank you.
28. It says 21.
25.
it's page 25 in the,
25.
in the,
PDF.
on the computer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
We're not actually striking the items, we're striking the whereas.
We're striking the
There's no
whereas in
items here,
between.
there's just whereas.
It is
Where is
25.
it?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want to start, I'm sorry, with
3.
with the third
Third,
one. I
third,
see.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, when it's time for
Any-
me, I'll. Thank you.
This is on the amendment to the current resolution. Any discussion on that?
No, I would just like, okay, I'll weigh in here too, because if we're making amendments, I would like to.
Did we already get a second?
Yes, we had a
We got
second
a
from
second.
Counselor Galanese.
Okay, I can see why Counselor Noon is suggesting that we strike all these whereases, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and whatever it is.
1, 2, and 8.
First, second, and eighth.
Oh, I'm sorry, right, okay, because one of the things I first of all have a problem with the resolution to begin with, but per this conversation about the sections, I would oppose this because I feel it's inaccurate. One of the whereases that we're talking about is that Counselor Loon is suggesting we take out is the one that talks about exemplary service record, commitment to protecting and enhancing the quality of life for all Genevans, and core leadership skills. We couldn't pass that. That's not true.
Well, that's
Counselor, if we can just stay away from, we're talking about the resolution,
Right.
please.
But
We're
and just
talking
for
about
that,
an
well,
amendment and he's giving his opinion and I share
and
that
I'm saying-
opinion.
We're staying away from personal attack.
Well,
please.
the thing is.
It's
I'm
our
saying-
reasoning for it. We want to
I-
take it out because we don't
Then
believe
you
it's
put your
true.
reasoning in a
I'm-
vote.
So I'm supporting taking that out
Thank you.
because that's not
Thank you.
accurate.
Thank you,
Right, it's not
Counselor.
Right.
accurate.
And if you want to have more of a conversation about
No,
why it's
I
not
don't.
accurate, I'm prepared to provide evidence.
That's quite all right. Thank you very much.
For the record, first off, I strongly disagree with Ken and Laura naturally. And
Let's stick
that
to the
is not,
resolution. Let's
that's
stick
not
to the
why,
resolution. and
that
knock
is
it out
not
there.
why I am bringing this forward. I am bringing this forward to the simple fact is that 1, 2, and 8 have nothing to do with the residency exemption. Thank you.
Okay. Ready to call the vote on the amendment, please?
I-
Call the
you didn't
vote.
I didn't hear you say call the roll. I'm sorry.
No, it's quite all
sorry.
right.
Counselor Noon,
Aye.
Counselor Galanese,
Aye.
Counselor Burrow,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
No.
Counselor Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Camera,
Aye.
Counselor Salamandra,
Aye.
Counselor Brim,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Now we're back to the resolution without paragraphs 1, 2, and 8. Any further discussion?
Yes.
I have sufficient.
Counselor Regan?
We're discussing the actual,
Already, this resolution now stands. You just,
We just took out.
we
3
just
paragraphs.
amended it.
oh, okay, so it has
Yep.
none of those.
Yeah.
Correct.
My issue here, I think in part, some of what we just did even reflects my problem with this. It's a personal resolution. It's a resolution for one person. And regardless of, there was a contract, he signed it. Later on in this meeting, we are discussing the residency requirement in general. Even if we were to change it so that he fit into that somehow, which is not that I'm recommending that, but to think that here we are legislating for one person, it's not something I feel we should do as a body. I don't like that as a precedent, I'm not in favor of this because, again, I think you don't legislate for one individual.
Counselor Cameron?
I'm not going to support this because I feel basically this was a deal that the chief made with more than just the city council. The last time, whenever that was 5, 6 years ago, he made it with members of the public as well. The public, rightly or wrongly, asked for this because it was understood that the chief's ability to respond to local emergencies or other situations was enhanced by being, in the operational sphere of the city of Geneva. And another benefit that's been often talked about is that by the chief living here among us in the city, it means that the chief gets to know the neighborhoods and everybody better. And as a person that's supervising the police force that's keeping us safe, the better knowledge and understanding of the neighborhoods and the dynamics and everything and the residents, would be a plus. So I think that's, I think that was the bargain that was made, and I kind of feel like, a deal's a deal, and the deal was made with the citizens of Geneva.
Counselor Galanese, and then Counselor Noon, and then Counselor Burrow.
We're talking about 4 months. 4 months. The housing market in Geneva for a house of his price range are not selling right now. Lower priced houses are selling like hotcakes. They're hard to find. We have a city manager over here that's 7 months, just moved into her house. So you're being a hypocrite over there, Jan, by saying what you're saying.
No
for the-
personal attacks, Counselor.
Sorry, for saying what she's saying, because what's good for the goose has got to be good for the
Can we-
gander. It has to be even playing field.
Can we
here.
stick to the resolution, please?
Well, I think that it's a
Please.
no-brainer, and out of respect for a city employee that has 20 years here, 4 months is not a big deal as we're making it out to be.
Counselor Noon.
I know they aren't going to have a logical comment, but I'm just curious as to what would you expect, Jan and Kenny, for someone to do? Just not sell their house for 4 months and just
Did
wait?
he already
Or
go?
what would you like to, how do you propose we
I'll
fix
answer
this?
that when.
Can't
others are-
wait.
Whatever.
Counselor Salamandra.
Okay, I just was wondering because my hand was up and I thought Counselor Noon was called on twice. Okay, I would like to speak freely in my comment here because this is a resolution from our police chief asking for a residency requirement. I will speak more in general later on residency requirements and why they're so important. But first, to respond to a comment about 4 months. It's funny that you might bring up 4 months and how little that is and how we should let it go, Counselor Galanese, but I've never seen parole or probation let someone off for 4 months early. So these kinds of things go in one way and not the other. Okay. I will be voting no for several reasons. I don't think that the police chief deserves an exemption from the residency requirement. I hope that rather than grant this request, the city manager will terminate the chief for running an unaccountable department, being a liar,
Counselor, stick to the
and
resolution
interfering
about
with city
residency.
business when
Counselor,
he asked the
please.
mayor to remove
please.
2
No,
individuals
I'm
from a
not
city
just
board.
please. We're
And
supposed
when
to
he
stick
allowed
to the
my
resolution
picture to
about
be up on a
residency.
forward-facing computer
Okay,
for 1
we're gonna
year,
call the
I
roll.
don't think this is
We're
a
gonna
good
call the roll.
behavior worthy of a
Listen,
benefit.
yeah, I understand that, but when you get one counselor that is not sticking to the resolution and is getting out of hand,
I'm talking about the
difficult.
resolution.
it's very different. No, you're not.
Mike
You're talking about a
Passalacqua has-
personal individual. You're not talking
I'm
about a
doing it based
residency.
on his performance. I think it's bad. I'm
No,
voting no.
Counselor,
Don't
you
limit
don't
my
tell me
free
what to do.
speech.
It's my responsibility.
I'm allowed to
Control the meeting.
discuss.
Counselor Burrow.
I think the resolution is premature based on how real estate transfers in reality. It was noted that his house is on the market right now. If it were a cash deal, it's going to probably take 30 days to close anyway. Okay, so that was not relinquished. And the closing date is, which is important.
I'm not sure. I believe it's either end of February, beginning of March was what the closing date was looking at. That's why this resolution's come forward now.
Okay, so that changes things a little bit. So the other part of the puzzle that's not here is that I don't know if he's moving to Cleveland or the town of Geneva, or if he's moving to Albany. And I think that has an effect on his performance here in the city of Geneva. If he's moving to Ovid, that's quite a bit different than moving to the town of Geneva. So I'm not comfortable with the way this resolution is worded.
Please.
His residency will be established in Seneca County. I believe it's in Waterloo.
And when is the closing date on that property, which is also a factor?
I don't know that there's a closing date. I don't know if it's a
So-
rental property or a purchase. So that's a piece of it.
Counselor Camera.
Okay.
Well, that's part of the issue is that we're getting down into the weeds of this man's personal life. And that deal was on the table 5 years ago or whenever it was done. And this individual knows the situation and knows the bargain he made. Whether it's hard to buy a house or sell a house on Maxwell Avenue, doesn't matter. Whether he's put an offer in on a house somewhere else, that's another matter. The fact is that I think that if there was anything I would like to do is I would like to add a stipulation, and I'd like the chief to stipulate that he has been living at and resting his head at that house at Maxwell Avenue at least 80% of the time for the last year. Because when has he made arrangements to leave this community? Has he already started to do that? And has he taken away from the situation, which was how this bargain was originally done, which would be, he would be in our operational sphere and available, and also would know the community better. So in a sense, this is a bogus resolution. We should leave it alone, and the chief should make sure that he's sleeping in Geneva every night until the deal is over. Otherwise,
All right, we
he's
got your
violated the
point.
terms of the agreement.
We've got your point. Counselor Peeler, your last word.
Yeah, real quick, I support this agreement. I think this is professionally reasonable. We've done this before. We did this to Amy, and I'm assuming our grace in leadership to allow you, to permit you to make those exceptions was appreciated. And this is just an act of grace. So we don't have to be authoritarians in this. This is just, it's the person who gave 20 years, right? And he's got things going on. So he doesn't want to violate the contract. The fact that he's doing this up front means he's a stand-up person. And he asked for it with grace. I think we should provide it with grace. I think it's professionally reasonable. It's going to be less than 4 months when it all plans out. And that's it. This is a completely reasonable. So, and Waterloo's 11 minutes away.
And actually, you could
Okay.
live in Geneva.
If
a
everyone's
further
getting it,
distance
I would
away
like to
than
speak
Waterloo.
again.
Counselor Salamander, are you going to do a personal attack? Are you going to talk about the resolution for residency?
I'm going to speak plainly like I was elected to do. It's funny because we're getting a lot of personal information about the chief here, where he lives, where he's moving, when his house closed, how that deal went. But when I try to give him a job performance, which is actually something I was elected to do, to talk openly about policing, then I'm gavelled by the mayor once again. So here
No, you
I'm
weren't.
going to say, the rumor is the chief has been quiet quitting and hasn't lived here. I don't believe a residency exception should be granted for him, because when I was forced out of my the place that I lived, the mayor and many of you were doing intensive research about where I was staying. This would
Those are
never
false
be
statements.
granted for somebody. This is a choice that Mike Pasalacqua is making. And when Amy says
Okay.
that we did a resolution like this before, it was
We
because
did.
Chief Trickler took $2,500 to live in the city and he never moved. So we must ask ourselves, why don't the chief of police want to live in the city of Geneva? Maybe it's because the taxes are too high because of the budgets that they demand.
You're not talking about it. Okay, clerk,
I'm
please call the
talking
roll.
because
the
you don't
resolution.
like
No,
my
I'm not gonna let
opinion.
her-
I'm out
I'm
of
not
order.
going to
I'd
let
like the
her
record
finish,
to
Counselor.
reflect that
Clerk,
the
please
mayor
call the
is
roll.
silencing the fifth ward counselor
I'm not
again.
silencing nothing. I'm moving on with the
Yes,
meeting.
you are.
I
Yes,
even
you
silence
are,
that.
because
don't
I
have
am
the
allowed
ability
to
si-
talk
She's
plainly.
still
Let
talking.
her finish.
So
she's
why are you
talking.
why are you interrupting me, Mr.
Clerk, please
Mayor?
call the roll,
Because why are you calling the roll?
because the conversation is over. Thank you.
Because you deem it, because you don't like my opinion, just like you kicked them off the board.
Your opinion is a
You're
personal
out of
attack.
line.
It's not about the residency and the resolution that's on the
I've
table.
only been talking about the
And I
residency.
asked at the beginning
and
of the
why
meeting,
the chief does not
keep this
deserve it.
civil.
He's
and
being
stick-
pushed into a benefit that most Genevans won't get at 3 times the average salary. And now he's moving to Waterloo
Personal
where he's been
attacks that I
staying.
asked not
But
to take
you,
place.
Mr. Mayor, want to approach my landlord and ask about my residency and some other inappropriate things. But when it's the chief of police, when he should be responsible to the budget he writes in the community he polices, then we should look the other
Okay,
way. No accountability
I don't have
for
a mute
police
button. I
in
wish I
Geneva.
did. Clerk, please call the roll.
Oh, stop.
Let's put this
Counselor
to-
Noon,
Counselor Noon?
Counselor Noon,
Aye.
Counselor Galanese,
Aye.
Counselor Burrow,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Regan,
Nay.
Counselor Camera,
Nay.
Counselor Salamandra,
Nay.
Counselor Brim,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is a resolution scheduling a public hearing in connection with the adoption of a local law authorizing an exemption, providing for a 10% exemption for volunteer firefighters or ambulance drivers certified by the City of Geneva Fire Department. I believe that's you bringing that forward.
So this is again, another local law. Not be right random, but it goes with a local law aiming for a tax exemption. This is something that has just been allowable in New York State. I will say that with the disclaimer that we're still attempting to figure out all the ramifications on that.
Amy, you're not online. Your voice.
Okay. Currently, firefighters do receive income tax exemption or can receive an income tax exemption. This is a property tax exemption. When we look at how many people it could potentially impact, there's still a review of that. Potentially, it could be approximately about 40 current volunteers. However, there is a limitation on that because they have to be active volunteers. And we have volunteers that do a variety of things, and how active is defined would be something more that we would have to look at. As I mentioned, there is that property tax exemption as well as the exemption that this is the property tax exemption as well as income tax exemption. We are working with other partners at the county level and at the state level to understand if we grant this, if it's one or the other, if it can be both, how that would work. I bring this forward to you just as an FYI. This is happening in other places to help with our recruitment. It does say firefighters or ambulance drivers. That would be the reason it says ambulance drivers is because that's what the law is for. It's not because that's what they would be. We would not be starting an ambulance.
Okay, so I need a motion for the public hearing to get on the floor. Counselor Galanese, seconded by Counselor Peeler. Discussion about the motion for the public hearing. Counselor Regan.
Because this is for a resolution for a public hearing, I would support it because I do believe in hearing opinions on it, but I have a lot of questions about it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just interrupt.
Oh,
We're going to take a 10-minute
take a
recess,
break.
please. We'll resume at 8:10. Zach, can you please?